Believe it or not, amidst all the farmers' heads exploding into tentacle monsters and Ashley screaming for your help, Resident Evil 4 2023 is about something. And you might have missed it because this game is mostly about farmers' heads exploding into tentacle monsters and Ashley screaming for your help. But about midway through the game, RE4 lets you know what it's ruminating on through this conversation between Leon and Ada.
Raccoon City. You know, after the incident, the world changed. You try to save one person, 100 others die. I guess I changed too.
You? Leon S. Kennedy. You haven't changed. You just think you have.
So here's my question. Have you changed, Ada?
Change makes sense as a theme for Resident Evil 4 2023. As Leon said, the world changed after the events of Resident Evil 2. All of the characters in both the main game and the Separate Ways DLC are trying to stave off being changed by the Los Plagas parasites. Some are reckoning with the ways that they've changed personally, some with how this particular experience will change them going forward, and some characters are looking to embrace and even expedite what they see as good change to the world. But of course, the game has changed too. Resident Evil 4 isn't titled Resident Evil 4 Remake, which to me suggests that the developers in Capcom don't want you to think of this as a remake, but a kind of continuation of the original game. A game that has changed rather than being remade. And Resident Evil 4 has changed, but just as Ada points out to Leon, it hasn't changed either. And in the enigmatic way that she says this to this hardened superhero version of Leon, the game captures both that not changing can be a good thing, but it can also mean that you make the same mistakes. It has been almost 15 years since I first played Resident Evil 4. It was my first Resident Evil game, and as a result, I was largely unappreciative of all the ways in which Resident Evil 4 changed the franchise. Resident Evil 4 2023 is less of a shakeup than the original, more or less capturing the same enjoyable and refined experience that Capcom has created with the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes before it, but still cranking up the action side of things. I played the game through on hardcore difficulty and had some moments of genuine struggle against the overwhelming enemies. The game delivers on the intensity. You may be able to move around while aiming in this version, and you may be able to parry a shocking number of different attacks from enemies, but the game rarely gives you room to breathe as a result. In this way, the survival part is enhanced, even if there's never anything quite as terrifying as Mr. X or Nemesis hounding your every step. Overall, the game is a delight. A variety of weapons with impactful upgrades are at your disposal, enemy variety and behavior keeps you on your toes, puzzles are present, boss fights are intense spectacles, and it is all glossed with beautiful visuals. My one gripe with the game is actually tied to the addition of the parry/perfect parry system and context-sensitive dodge system. With this added mechanic, there are now 4 kinds of attacks that you have to look for with bosses and certain tough enemies. Normal attacks, which are parryable. context-sensitive attacks that you can dodge, unblockable and undodgeable heavy attacks, and command grabs. The fact that the dodge is tied to context-sensitive moments during fights where you have a window to press the dodge button when it appears on screen repeatedly frustrated me. I wish Resident Evil 4 had fully committed to this combat system and given Leon a dedicated dodge. I also wish that there was more of an indication of which attacks were parryable and which were not, other than a small icon appearing in the bottom right-hand corner, away from where you're focusing to try to read the enemy's attacks. It is a minor gripe, and it doesn't ruin anything about the overall experience, but it feels like the mechanic is only half-baked, and I don't see why Leon couldn't have had access to a permanent dodge roll. In terms of the changes to the story and characters, I wasn't bothered by the removal of certain areas and events that were in the original Resident Evil 4. Nothing is missing in terms of the plot, and there is still plenty of game here. If anything, the game feels better paced, and some of the more absurd elements are sanded off to try, and I do mean try here, to keep the game more grounded. As far as the characters are concerned, while Ashley still remains rather helpless and requires you to focus on her, just like in the original game, a core part of the gameplay loop, her personality and behavior have been adjusted to, well, I assume to make her less annoying. The problem with this is that for most of the game, and I would dare say the whole game, this change amounts to her having basically no personality. Sure, she's not hitting on Leon as much, and that's an improvement, but it really feels like a lot has been taken away here, and not much has been put in to replace it.
When that happened, I wasn't myself anymore. I was something else.
There are also moments throughout where the patronizing nature of Leon and Ashley's banter really got me.
Get this for me.
Leave it to me. I'm actually pretty good at this stuff.
As a companion who is with you for a large portion of the game, Leon and Ashley really don't talk about anything with each other.
I just want to go home.
And it feels like a real missed opportunity. I started this review out by talking about how Resident Evil 4 is about change, how it can be both good and bad, but also how a failure to change can be good or bad. When Ada tells Leon he hasn't changed, he just thinks he has, we're left to wonder what that means, and whether it is good or bad. While this never really goes anywhere with Leon, whose mistaken belief that he has changed is much more subtly played out, it does end up going somewhere with the game itself. Resident Evil 4 has changed, but it also hasn't. And in this, we can find both the good and the bad. Resident Evil 4 has changed in that it is slightly more grounded than the original, but it also changed in ways that have hollowed out parts of it. Resident Evil 4 has also not changed in that this is in many ways still that same game, but it has also not changed in ways that connect to what I will call the Fast and the Furiousing of the Resident Evil franchise. I mean, look at this.
What? Are you serious? Jump! Oh yeah! Luis, can I get a hand?
And this.
Great.
Leon, you don't need to backflip off the wall. You can just take a step back. Arguably, the problem of escalation comes for all long-running franchises, and as memory serves, it came for Resident Evil pretty badly over the course of RE4 to RE6, to the point that RE7 needed to do a full reset to ground it back in horror and less in being a superhero movie.
Try using knives, Nick.
While Resident Evil 4 is more grounded, it still shows signs of this inevitable escalation problem. In this, it has not changed, and only time will tell if future remakes, such as Resident Evil 5 or 6, will change or fail to recognize all the ways that they haven't. I'm making a big deal about this idea of change because I think there's something here in this game that's about more than a city boy pumping strange rural folk full of lead and trying to rescue the president's daughter. How do we retell the same stories now? How do we preserve who and what we were with who and what we are now? The world changes. And nostalgia can be nice, but it ultimately confuses what those changes have been and what those changes have not been. Resident Evil 4 2023 is an excellent game that I enjoyed every minute of. It gave me something different as much as it gave me something familiar, and it maintains the balanced horror to cinematic action feel that the original RE4 managed to achieve. While not flawless in its execution, or always fully baked, Resident Evil 4 nevertheless shines as an example of a remake that capitalizes on nostalgia without forgetting that a remake needs to be its own achievement and not just the achievements of the past.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?